Right, we go now to a province with 5.5 million eligible voters and more than 4,000 voting stations that were set up for polling, and that's of course in KwaZulu-Natal, where there were some reports of trouble there. Ayanda Mhlongo is our reporter at the IEC Centre in Durban. Ayanda, a very good evening to you. KZN, as one would have expected, is certainly one of the provinces where there were hot spots, but overall the picture has been generally a positive one.
Yeah, very good evening to you, Bongan, and good evening to our viewers coming to you from the Results Operating Centre here in Durban. We're starting to get busy with more of the political party representatives making their way here to the centre. Of course, we're just over 4 hours to go until the voting stations close, and it's a race against time for the IEC as well as the political parties to ensure that they encourage as many people to get to those voting stations before the 9 p.m. cut-off time. As you know, of course, since this morning we've been reporting on the demonstrations and some of the issues around voting stations which hampered the start and delayed the opening of some of the stations. And so now the IEC is making that appeal to voters in the province of KwaZulu-Natal to try and get to the voting stations before 9 p.m. They have said that they will allow people who are still in the queue at 9 p.m. to be able to cast their votes, but relatively happy with the afternoon and how they have progressed despite those challenges in the morning. It seems that everything now is stable in those areas which were volatile this morning. The law enforcement agencies are also saying that they are still out deployed in these areas and on standby, particularly for this evening as it gets darker. Bongani, there is of course a concerns, and they, from a security perspective, they're also asking members of the public to get to the voting stations on time to avoid any issues that might arise in the dark outside the stations. So additional police deployments are in strategic areas for any eventuality where they will be needed. And of course, we also have the South African National Defence Force that is also ready and on standby to assist the South African police force should a need arise. But very soon, I guess the focus is going to be here at the Results Operating Centres. We know 31 political parties contesting the province of KwaZulu-Natal. So it's going to get interesting, Bongani, very soon as we start to see those results come through here.
Yes, indeed, Ayanda Mhlongo, will all be glued to our screens to try and find out exactly what the national picture looks like. Thank you very much for that update, Ayanda Mhlongo, of course, at the IEC Operations Centre in Durban. Right, let's get now some perspective